Hello. This is the Evolved Educator podcast. Each episode, we talk about education and teaching. Our goal is for you to feel part of the community, and we want to learn from you. And we hope that you learn a little something from us too. So welcome. Today, we're going to be talking about empowering students to ask questions. I'm Jennifer.
I'm Chanmi.
I'm Michelle.
So let's do a quick brainstorm of some people whose business it is to ask questions.
Interviewer, journalist, doctor, lawyer, police officer, detective.
Scientist, artist, engineer, athlete, teacher. You know, I'm struggling to even think of some job that you don't have to ask questions. You know, it's just if some position where somebody doesn't interact with other people very much, but they still have somebody, a client or a boss or somebody that they need to find out more information from. Yeah, so I think that list of people who don't need to ask questions would be very short. I personally cannot think of anything right now.
Because I think questioning skills are just something that everyone will need.
So that brings us to our segment, Reversing the Roles. So in another podcast, we had discussed questioning as one of the teacher's most powerful tools, and how teachers can really target their instruction by knowing the types of questions to ask their students and when, and how important that is. Questions like that would elicit information or build understanding or press for reflection. So today we're really just shifting a little bit in talking more about the questions and using them as a learning tool for students. Recently I was thinking about this process, and this process of inquiry really essentially starts from birth, right? So, you know, we know small children are really the most persistent questioners.
Right. So much of their language and knowledge is acquired through questioning.
Right. When my own children were little, just those car rides, just asking so many questions about the world. And I don't think I listened to the radio at all for years because I was just talking with my kids.
That's true. And yet once they get to school, this skill that they have is almost immediately reduced, and in some cases even removed. The teacher really becomes the questioner.
But that shouldn't be happening because, I know that students end up asking less than 15% of the questions in class, but that's not ideal for student learning.
Right, because we know that fostering student curiosity has a direct impact on student engagement and their academic achievement.
Right. It can really improve the individual's memory for the information that they acquire.
Right. So, you know, that the teacher ends up being the questioner, and why that doesn't work is because we also know from research that curiosity with conscientiousness, so wondering on purpose and purposefully asking these questions, has as much of an impact on achievement as intelligence. And we also know that it helps to grow intelligence.
Right. So if we know all of this, then why are there not more questions being asked by our students? Or more importantly, how can we get them to start asking?
Right. Well, we need students to be asking the questions.
Right. Because it's a natural thing. They were doing it since birth. So
yes.
Let's get into doing that again.
Yes. So what do you think, Chanmi? You're about to say something.
Well, you know, we've talked a lot about 21st century skills, the 4 C's. We have creativity, critical thinking, communication, and collaboration. And we also know that these are the skills the students need for success. But most importantly, we know that from this, like, questioning skills support all of the 4 C's.
Yes.
Right. I mean, think about that. So questioning promotes divergent thinking, which is essential for sparking creativity. Students have to use questions to help them solve problems and think critically.
Being able to ask questions is an important way to gather information. It's just vital for communicating. it also sparks new questions, which then promotes building on other people's ideas and collaboration, and that's how problems get solved.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
You could almost say questioning or curiosity is like the fifth C. What are some ways that you guys promote questioning in your classroom?
So for me, I'm big on modeling good behavior. So for this situation, modeling good question behavior. So I think out loud for the students, and I walk them through my thought process, and which helps encourage questioning. And I revise my questioning in front of them so that they can know how that sounds in my own head, and then they can do that for themselves. And this is for any subject, all day long. Another thing that I do for students is I use question stumps to help them get started, so they can know how to articulate their ideas.
Right.
Then something else that I'm big on, and I've said this explicitly to students, is that it's about the process. The learning is about the process, not the product. It's not about getting that quote unquote answer, especially for math and science. So that engineering design process, it's heavy on asking questions, not just at the start, not just to begin the whole thing, but all the way through, because then questions lead to more questions. And you could never stop if you had the time.
And something I am intentional about is putting in that practice in my plans for students to question. So the activities that I have to promote question asking, those tried and trues, turn and talk, having exit tickets, having routines and practices like QAR, question answer relationship, 20 questions, chalk talk, wonder logs or wheels, giving surveys and polls so they can vote, giving anticipation guides, QFT, notice and note, would you rather. Those are just some great activities or strategies that you can use to promote those conversations, but to promote, like to teach the students how to ask each other questions and to build on each other's questions. Another thing I do intentionally while I'm teaching is to slow down. I need to provide that wait time and allow for those teachable moments to happen, and just even Googling, I don't know, let's go look that up, and sometimes that Googling fosters even more questions, because like we said, the questioning isn't just something you do at the beginning, it's something that you do throughout your learning.
Right. It's not this linear thing, like you've said, that it comes down to, oh, here's our answer. It's cycle. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I just remembered something. One year, I had all the, and I should, I don't have my own classroom anymore, so it's not as easy to do. But one of the last years that I had my own classroom, I had the students, every time they had a question, they wrote it down on an index card and they put it up on a bulletin board. And, it might have taken them weeks to figure out what the answer to their question was. But then as they went on, like we just said, more questions developed, and I would have them coordinated by space so that the questions went together. And then first of all, the students remembered way better than I did that they had their question up on the board. And then when they finally figured it out, oh my gosh, the excitement was palpable. And they would go get their index card off the board and write down what they found out. Sometimes it would go onto another index card and then put it back up there. Sometimes even another student would read it. Hi, Teddy. Sometimes another student would read it, and they would then go to the student who wrote the question. They would have this conversation. It was organic and it was amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead. The lesson
No,
here.
I think it's great. So,
Yeah.
So the lesson here then is what you said. We want to create these lifelong questioners. And if we want to do that, we have to kind of slow things down. We've got to really plan specific opportunities for the students to be able to practice this inquiry. And then teachers can support their curiosity with lots of modeling and lots of reflection and lots of encouragement.
So that brings us to our segment, Strategies That Get the W. Each time we like to send you off with a little goodie, some strategy that you can use in your classroom right now. And Chanmi, you mentioned before QFT, and I think, Jennifer, are you going to talk about that?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, Chanmi had already brought it up. QFT is a question formulation technique. It sounds fancier than it is.
Yeah, it's actually pretty simple to execute.
It is, and I've been using it for years. I think I've been using it for years before I knew that's what it was called.
Right.
And so I tend to use it with art and photography a lot. Sometimes I use it at the beginning of a lesson or a unit, but it really can be used anywhere, beginning, middle, or end, and with any subject. So anyway, the teacher provides a sort of a question focus in a visual form. I like to use real art or photography. And students generate questions, and then they sort of improve on those questions and start to prioritize those questions and questions they want to maybe further explore. And then they decide how they want to explore those questions. Maybe we want to have a discussion, maybe we want to do more research on it. There's so many benefits, and the kids get really good at it.
Yeah, with practice.
So much curiosity. Yeah, it really builds their interest. Like you were talking about with the bulletin board, you know, it just leads to more and more questions. It promotes a lot of ownership for them. It really helps them to focus their attention on very specific things. It helps with identifying and anticipating misconceptions. So it works for formative assessment for me. So many benefits. And really, you know, obviously images, it's just the possibilities are endless. You can use it with anything.
Right.
One of the sources of images that I look for, use is from the Library of Congress. And so when you're looking for historical images, and then you can show the pictures like bit by bit. So it's like you're creating a puzzle and you start with one perspective. So like you said, there's just so many ways that you could build conversations around and have them develop questions about the image there, and use it as a way to hook them into the historical era or study the historical era even further.
You mentioned art and photography, which is awesome, and the kids love that. I've also done it with just writing a statement that doesn't give away too much information, but really prompts thinking. So like for this example right now, I might have said, the dog kept jumping up on Michelle while she was trying to record. And then that's it. That can prompt a whole lot of questions from students. So, I mean, yeah.
Right. And they get so good at it. They do. They just love it. And they start building on it. And
yeah, it's good. I love it. It's a very amazing strategy. Anybody can start right now for any subject.
Right. And it doesn't take long.
It does not. Only about 10 minutes, maybe 5. Yeah. All right. That's all for today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.